name is Hai. I run the data team at a legal tech company called Entra, and previously spent my entire career at consumer tech companies like Nextdoor, LinkedIn, Pinterest, Meta, and so on and so forth. So I've been doing this since I guess earlier this year, and the three of us have a lot of fun doing it. I'm gonna pass it over to Sean.
Cool. Hey everyone, I'm Sean. Yeah, one of the leaders of the AI Analyst Lab, and I'm also a principal data scientist at the same company as Hi, a legal tech company called Entra. Yeah, I've been in data science for about 10 years, and I'd say like the past 2 years been focused mostly on like AI evals and agentic analytics. So yeah, really happy to have you all here join us today and talk a little bit about the capability of Claude Code as it pertains to analyzing metric trade-offs. I'll pass it over to Sravya.
Hello, everyone. So excited to see you all here. I am Sravya. I'm in the data science field for the past probably 14, 15 years now. Been with Microsoft, then eBay, then Nextdoor. That's where Shanghai and I met, and most recently at Superhuman. So yeah, been part of this journey with Hai and Sean for quite some time. Very excited to share all our learnings with you.
Cool. Yeah. And the lab, we call it, that we're all working together on is called AI Analyst Lab. And if you're ever interested in some past lessons, past workshops, or upcoming courses or workshops, take a look at there, over there. We've got just really quick, we also run different workshops and boot camps, and we have one tomorrow on Introduction to Claude Code Analytics. And then we have another one, boot camp, just a weekend after, which is 2 days. We'll talk a little bit more about what those are later in the lesson. Okay, so what are we here to talk about today? We're here to talk about guardrails. So, like understanding how things move against each other, and then how you, as either a data professional or a business owner or a decision maker, come up with plans to sort of mitigate the downside that may not be visible to you. So in this slide, assume that we have like a product team optimizing for something like a mobile checkout funnel. So when you go buy something, let's think like Amazon. There's if you shop on your phone, you probably have a go through a bunch of payment steps, go through a bunch of add to carts, and finally input your credit cards and stuff like that at the end to actually check out. So, like I think it's probably not super surprising that things could go, like one metric could go up and another metric could go down. And as a rigorous sort of analytics practitioner or data practitioner, our job is to make sure that we cover all the blind spots as early as we can and plan ahead of time as much as we can. So this example here, very simple. It's like, hey, assume if, or let's say like if something caused or some sort of feature that the team launched on a checkout flow led to conversion rate that goes up 15% perhaps, but then two weeks later, actual net revenue was down. This is probably not that big of a let's call it like right now, it's still hypothetical, but probably more common than many people sort of like have the discipline to plan ahead of it. And so this entire lesson, what we're going to do is to really just think through how to use a very simple framework to make sure these traps aren't being stepped on. Who actually would love to get a poll here? Like who's encountered something similar at your workplace, in your role, or have seen this play out from time to time or ever? Is this a common thing?
I saw this a lot working with emails and notifications. Lots of trade-offs in terms of optimizing those.
Nice, yeah.
Tarun's
And
got their hand up.
No, I'm saying that I saw this
Oh,
happening.
you saw
Oh,
news.
cool.
Yeah.
I saw this happen in several of my clients. This is a concern, especially in e-commerce industry.
Mhm. Yeah.
Small shops based out of Texas will see this. Not only for 15% is a very small number for them. Sometimes the sales double or triple in a very short span of time, and then they fall down pretty significantly.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. I mean, trade-offs, decisions happens all the time. And so this is what we're going to talk about is really just a tool to help make it, I guess, more streamlined. I mean, tough decisions is still going to need to be made at the end of the day. But as much of a structure we can put around it, the less taxing it is every time that it feels like an ad hoc thing over and over again. Cool. Okay. So before we get into the actual framework and a demo with Claude Code, just wanted to sort of like let this group know if you follow us on LinkedIn or in previous lessons, we've been pretty open about we've developed something called an AI analyst, which is almost like a senior product data scientist clone in Claude Code. So we've got a agentic system where it bakes in all the best practices for how to be a really effective product data scientist. And so this is free to clone. Everybody can go and take a look or use it for your own work or your own interest. It's all cool, open source, completely free, tons of skills, tons of agents that we encoded our collective 50 years of knowledge in this field. From in this lesson, what we're going to be talking about is we're gonna grab like a very specific piece from the AI analyst um, system to just walk through the guardrail component of how you should think about success metrics, but then also like what we call shadow in this lesson here. Cool. And yeah, just quick plug for folks who are interested in, maybe you've seen the AI analyst repo, maybe you've seen us taught a few lessons in the past, and you've heard it from this from the audience from this lesson as well earlier today. We're running a couple of things. Tomorrow we have a workshop. This is hands-on. We're going to help you walk through how to install Claude Code, how to clone the repo, run the real analysis, and all three of us will be there for 3 hours to make sure everybody is totally set up. That's sort of like the shape for the workshop tomorrow. And it's $25. We just want to make sure we wanted to make it free, but we also want to make sure that people actually do show up. So a nominal amount to hopefully get you on to the journey of really up your productivity in the whole data slash analytics space. And then the weekend right after is the boot camp, which is a 2-day thing, 4 hours each day, where we're going to walk you through how to build your own AI analyst system. So all the thinkings behind, like what goes into spinning up a skill, spinning up an agent, how do you wire them together, all that kind of stuff. That's going to be in a week and a little more. We'll come back to the specifics on these at the end. So right now, let's go back to the content here. Cool. Okay. So the main idea of this lesson really is this. So every success metric has a shadow. So the shadow, it's also called guardrail, is the metric that gets worse when you optimize the success metric too much. So it could be I think we'll get into the examples later in a later slide. But a lot of teams don't actually think about these shadow slash guardrail metrics upfront. So when the success metric moves, they would immediately say, "Oh yeah, that's a win. Like we'll just like that looks great. We're done." Or they celebrate too early. Um, but if you don't check these shadow metrics or guardrail metrics, then then you really don't have a complete picture of the mechanics of how things are working. So, you know, in addition to making sure you make the best product decision or business decision with a holistic picture, you also need to, it also helps you teach kind of like, hey, when this thing moves like this. And so that muscle memory is actually, I would argue, more important than the on the spot sort of one metric or one instance or one feature that you are or your company is shipping. So hopefully that makes sense. Cool. Okay, so here are some examples of shadow pairs. So things like what left on the left side is success, on the right side is the guardrail. So first one here is you know, like very commonly if you're in the e-commerce business, conversion rate, for example. So purchase conversion rate or like checkout conversion rate, something like that. And then the guardrail for that could be what is the average order value. So if you, for example, if you make things so easy to check out, like to buy, does it how does it affect how much you're buying? And these always, you know, like these would move in interesting patterns, typically. The second example here is signups. So converting into for example, like signing up for an account on some website, for example, the the guardrail for that would be, are they retaining? Like, are these signups just, you know, like very low intent people who are just, you know, having a very easy time to get an account, or are they actually serious about sticking around, which is the day 30 retention in the guardrail component. So, you know, like that's kind of like, you know, it's hard to when you start naming these pairs, it's going to be hard to think how having visibility into this would, you know, make it easy to game the system, for example. You know, in the case of signups, like the easiest, a very classic example is like, hey, I can always make the sign up button bigger, right? And people would convert and so on and so forth. But like, you know, probably most likely they're not going to stick around, the people who sign up because of it. And then, oops. And then we have engagement versus NPS, so Net Promoter Scores or complaints. So, you know, like you can have very, what do you call it, like attention grabbing sort of stuff that gets people to be very hooked to your products. But then, you know, like your complaints might go up or your NPS might go down. So it could be, you know, like you could send more emails, but then people might just get pissed off because of it. And then the final example here is support speed. So like if you run a custom or I guess a call center of some or what do you call those like uh, customer experience teams where you know the job is to help people resolve their concerns or whatever. You can imagine, hey, if they're gold on just support speed, like how fast do you close the tickets, then it could be that the guardrail for that is how much of those tickets, when you are so aggressive in closing, would actually become open again. Like, you know, the actual issue may not have been resolved, but then because the metric itself is to measure against the time to which the ticket closes, the guardrail would be okay. It would suck if the same issue is open again. Does that make sense? Hopefully, this is pretty straightforward. Cool.
Yeah, this is pretty straightforward. Thanks.
Great. Okay. So let's see. So the actual framework here that is helpful, and we walk through two of the sort of like three things here. So really, there's only three decisions that you really want to think about in terms of pairing guardrails to your success metrics. And we obviously we talked about two of them. The first one is success metric, like, you know, like no surprise. What are you actually trying to improve? And what are you trying to actually measure to proxy that improvement? So just some very concrete examples here, a bad success metric would just be, something called engagement, for example. Like, what does that mean? It could be defined a billion different ways. A good one would be very specific. So, for example, in the whole e-commerce space, could be purchase rates for new users or something like that. So, very specific, very intentional about the thing that you are actually trying to move with a feature or with whatever product improvements that you may have. And then the second piece is the guardrail, right? Like the guardrail itself. Like, what is the shadow here? It is the thing that catches the trade-off. So I think a lot of teams that I've seen in the past might be like, oh, let's just track everything, or let's just look at whatever we have that we don't deem success metric and see what that looks like. Um, a really good practice is actually to predefine it up front. So like be intentional about, hey, if we think this is the thing that we're trying to improve, what is something that we're not willing to compromise? And also be very specific on that. So here it's if you track everything, that's a bad statement generally. A good one is if you list out sort of like the possible things that this could go wrong that you think would be detrimental for the business, that would be detrimental for the business, and then just make sure those are explicitly named. Making it upfront is actually one of the most important aspects of this, because when you already launch the feature, for example, and then you then start to hunt for data or metrics to either support or make the decision on the fly, that's actually really that's actually not very healthy, because then you're basically just trying to use data to kind of like uh, like almost like data theater to prove a point, if you will. Okay, and then the third one here is actually what do you call that? Like actually put a threshold on the guardrails that you've picked. So it's one thing to be like, hey, here's my guardrail or a set of guardrail metrics that we care about, that they shouldn't, move or whatever. In reality, if you drive up, for example, a success metric, most likely the guardrail would also move in a different direction. That's why it's called a guardrail anyway, because like there's a good chance that there's adverse effects on that metric, but you're hoping that the gain of the success metric outpaces that by a lot, for example, or that, in the best case scenario, it doesn't actually move, or, even improve. So, pre-aligning and predefining on what that threshold or the willingness for you to be comfortable with defining, let's call it like a feature to be successful, if it moves success metrics by this much, and it doesn't degrade the guardrail by more than this much, then you have a really powerful combination of a clear criteria that you don't even have to think about when you actually launch the feature or make the product improvements. And then on the slide here, there's a couple kind of like ways to think about it. One is like alert threshold. So for example, if it only moves by a little bit, and then like, in that area, based on your prior context or your business domain knowledge about how your products or how your features move, maybe 3 to 5% is not a big deal. So anything below that, you're good to go. And then there's another one, which is like, hey, an absolute kill threshold, which is if it goes worse than this threshold, then we're absolutely killing the thing. Or, like we'll absolutely pause it and then go figure out what's going on. So always having these kind of predefined is going to be helpful, so that you're not scrambling after the fact to be like, oh, like, what does this mean? Like, is this good? Is this bad? And then like make decisions on the spot. Does that make sense for people? Like in terms of, why this is important, like doing it upfront versus doing it afterwards.
I think something else, and you might get to this later, Hi, is like it's not just about like you as an individual making these decisions around the alert and kills. It's also about just like being able to align teams. So you want to take as much of the decision-making process as possible and just do it before any data is even created or looked at. So everyone's aligned and basically like their opinions aren't biased or polluted after the fact based on what happens. So like I mean, if you like have like a finance team that cares about one metric and a sales team that cares around one metric and a product team that cares about another metric, if you're all aligned in the beginning, then it makes it really easy after everything is said and done to move forward with whatever your decision is. If you don't have this alignment around thresholds before, then those conversations can end up like with a lot of conflict. They can get like even like political and all this just unnecessary stuff that's basically like you can avoid by just setting some numbers ahead of time in a document that you can point back to later on because everyone's out there trying to do what's right for the business, but everyone has also like their own priorities, right?
Yeah, the more complicated, the more tricky, the more sensitive a feature or an experiment is, the more important it is to pre-align stuff so that you don't get into Sean's described scenario where it may even get political. Because when people see that, especially people who are like, "Hey, it affects my area positively," then I'll go. I'll probably go crazy to try to, like, not care about the other areas that get affected by this. All right, cool. So we'll get into the Claude Code component pretty quickly, but let's do a very quick exercise here. Um, For each of these success metrics, maybe drop it in chat. What guardrail would you put in? So let's App Store rating. If this is the success metric that people want to optimize for, what is a shadow? Shadow for carts is cart abandoned. Yeah, that's a good one. Bot response, App Store rating daily active users. Yes, Chris, you got it. That's awesome. Yeah, some sort of engagement or feature usage. So the idea is like, oh, App Store rating may or may not be reflective of the actual, like almost like a qualitative versus quantitative aspects, and both can go in different directions. Maybe we'll do one more, and then we'll get into Claude Code. Push notification. What is the thing? What is the shadow here? What is the guardrail? NPS push disables, unsubscribes, yes. Great. Yeah. Unsubscribes or anything that indicates just being annoyed. So NPS is fine. Unsubscribe rate is fine. Push disable is all good. These are all, and churn is good. Probably more laggy. But yeah, it's definitely a good idea. Cool. Yeah. So it seems like everyone is now pretty comfortable looking at what the whole guardrail thing looks like. Okay, so we're going to get into Claude Code in a bit. Just wanted to set up the demo scenario here. So in the AI analyst agentic system that we open sourced, and again, feel free to download it, take a look, poke around, and build on top of it. The kind of like the fictional data set that we included in the repo is a fictional company called NovaMart, which is an e-commerce company. Think of it as like an Amazon, like yeah, think exactly like Amazon. It's just a fake company. And let's say if a product team is looking to ship a feature called save for later, so some sort of a button that's like, oh, instead of buying now, like I'll just save for save for a future time, and then you can come back to it pretty easily. Hopefully this is straightforward for folks because of the whole Amazon mechanic. So think of it as the same thing. And our goal is to understand, for this feature, and given this primary metric of 30-day purchase rates, for example, what would be possible guardrails that we can have. And then we're going to get into Claude Code right now to use it, pointing at some of the skills that we have in the system to help us answer this question, and then we'll see how it works into kind of like future analysis. Let me find the share button here. Okay. All right, so I am switched to the other screen. Can you guys see my Claude Code thing? A black screen here? Okay.
Yeah, it has like the overall conversion
Yes.
plot on
Cool.
there.
Awesome. That chart has nothing to do with what we're talking about. It's just a default thing that I was looking at previously. So, okay, so for folks who are not familiar, this is VS Code. It is an IDE environment. Think of it as like a workspace that you set up such that you can have a very intuitive, easy to use a navigation panel to look at your folders and files. So I'm in AI Analyst Plus, but think of it as like the AI Analyst repo that we shared, and within it, it's got different agents, different skills, different slash commands, and stuff like that. So if you look at it, it's like it's got a forecast skill, it's got a metric skill, and what we're going to be looking at is guardrails. And if you've never done Claude Code or anything, it's actually very straightforward. No coding background required, and the workshop that we run tomorrow exactly shows how to, get this whole thing set up step by step. What I'm doing here is Claude Code in terminal. So right here at the bottom is basically my terminal, and I just went into Claude Code and start working there. So what I'm going to do, because there's so many different components here in the system, I'm just gonna ask it to tell us what sort of a guardrail or metric pipeline does it have. So I'm gonna do.
Maybe while you're typing that high, just to get a feel for the room, curious who here has used Claude Code for analytics before. Maybe drop a 0 in the chat if you've never used Claude Code before, a 1 if you've used Claude Code but not for analytics, and a 2 if you've used it for analytics. Kind of helps us know
Yeah.
the audience. Cool. So a lot of people have used Claude Code. Got a couple people who haven't used it, a couple of people who have used it for analytics, but most people have used it but not for analytics so far.
Got it. Cool. Nice. Wow, that's a really good poll. All right, so I'm firing this prompt. Can you show me an ASCII diagram of the metrics and guardrail pipeline? So it's gonna go look and explain to me visually what it is that we have in the agentic system as pertains to metrics and guardrail metrics. So I'm just gonna fire that off. Let's see. Code. All right, it should be relatively quick, I am hoping. Yeah, so what it's doing is burning tokens, but also looking at doing its own thing to show this at the end. Okay, so let me go here. So this is the illustration of the workflow in the AI analyst system. So metric and guardrail pipeline. It's visually trying to show us what this looks like, what the sequence of steps is, and what it does when it encounters metric and like how it kind of works with success versus guardrail metrics. So step one in this whole pipeline where, if we use it to do analysis and stuff, it will have to help it define certain metrics. So it's got different components to it, and it gets very specific around, hey, what is a reusable piece of metric when we say, whatever, like monthly active user, how is it actually defined in the most granular way possible? So it's got different skills around metric specs, and then it forces the system then to pair a guardrail against it, at least one guardrail. So at least one guardrail per success metrics, and then measures a different dimension. So it gives some examples around if it's quality, then look for something that's quantity, speed versus accuracy, that kind of stuff, and then figure out the acceptable thresholds and what things should move by. It could figure out based on the data that you have, but the general recipe is that it will figure out it will make sure to bake that in as part of the job, if you will. And then there's the kind of like the, what do you call that? Like the examples of common pairings that we went through. It will start to when it actually does the analysis, for example, in an experiment setting, then it will, obviously compute the two, and then it will check against the guardrails, and then it will have verdicts and the threshold that we just talked about. Right now, it's just an example, but you can imagine like it could be specified based on the business and the domain and your use case, and then it'll give a report, that kind of stuff. So what I am going to do is we're gonna do the exact setup that we just looked at from an earlier slide. I am planning. Actually, let me just paste something here. I already have it written down. All right, cool. So this is the next prompt that I'm gonna give it. I'm planning to ship a save for later feature on NovaMart. So I have the dataset already loaded. It comes pre-installed, if you will, with the AI Analyst repo. I'm telling it the primary metric is a 30-day purchase rate. What we're looking for is a plus 15% increase in that for the save for later feature, and just help me design the guardrails for it. And then we can actually use it to brainstorm slash confirm what would make sense to do. And so, yep. And so it's gonna keep thinking a little bit. It will go into the guardrail skill. It will go into some of the metric skills to figure out, hey, in this scenario, where is my question fitting in the sequence here? Cool. Claude Opus 4.7 is not the fastest model, but oh, okay, it's fast enough here. All right, look at the flattery language. Good feature to guardrail.
That's one thing it'll never forget, to give some flattery.
Yes, exactly. Okay, cool. So good feature to guardrail. Big risk is cannibalization of immediate purchase. So notice we did the like it understands that the save for later feature is the thing that like that you can come back to hopefully in the future when you're not as ready to make the purchase right now. And then it's flagging that the big risk is that maybe people would be over reliant on the fact that hey, I can always just punt it down to a later time. So people would actually not do immediate purchase. So that's the big idea here. And then it's giving some recommended guardrails based on that. So the guardrail could be same session purchase rates, average order value. It would have the what do you call that? Like the acceptable range as well, based off of the data that it has access to on the NovaMart company, and it also has its own judgment around why these things should exist, or what the rationale is for picking some of these things. So it's pretty detailed. And like right now it's just the interactive kind of like me talking to Claude on the screen. But in the actual skill, for example, it will actually be able to write out a detailed report once we make some decisions around, these are the guardrails that we care about, that kind of stuff. So even says, hey, three things to nail down before the launch. What are these attributions, measurement, design, blah, blah, blah. So when I need you to rewrite the full spec. So it has access to a metric spec skill so that it can log when we make these decisions that, for example, hey, if I think return rate is really important here, then it will log that in the system such that in the future, when I actually use it to analyze an actual experiment or an analysis, it understands that that's what I care about. So let's do something here. Let's say we don't actually track return rate. What else would you suggest? So I'm trying to show the interactive nature of using it as a brainstorm buddy. So almost like like the phrase that we like to say a lot in the AI analyst lab is that you're getting an AI companion effectively. You can delegate your execution to an AI assistant that thinks like the best, as much as possible, that we bake in the best product data scientist out there. Cool. Thought partner. Yes, Praveen. Great point. Thought partner, not a replacement. Okay, so two reasonable proxies. It says, hey, we don't track return rates. Then it would be like, hey, do the ticket rates, pre-shipment cancellation rates, and then it will tell me why this would actually proxy the return that we don't have or that we don't track. And then what are the caveats and what are some acceptable ranges that it then kind of pivots to with a new metric like this. So also has recommendations and stuff like that. Uh, so you can go pretty deep with it in terms of thought partnership, brainstorming, and stuff like that. So what I'm gonna ask next, and then we'll go back to the slides and stuff. Hopefully this gives you an idea. What if return rate increases, but 90-day purchase rate remains flat? So I'm trying to see, so right here at the top, some of the recommended guardrails says, hey, return rates and 90-day repeat purchase rates. I want to see, or not, yeah, 90-day purchase rates. I want to see, hey, if these things move in a given scenario, what does that mean? So that's you can figure out pre-aligning up top what you can expect and what you would do if you see certain things. So this is really helpful to just like get your rationale in the right place. Remains flat. What does that tell us? And so it will continue to think and give us a scenario. And then you can imagine this could be done for a billion different scenarios. So the really helpful thing to do is just to be very comfortable with some of the choices and scenarios for things if they happen this way or that way, if it's unclear. 36 seconds. Yep, Opus 4.7 is not the fastest model. So if folks have a way to make it run faster, let us know.
Use 4.6.
Yes.
We talked about this in the chat, but I also like to toggle the effort on 4.7 to something that's not as high.
Yeah. Okay, so translation features changing what customers buy, not whether they keep coming back. So yeah, so most likely story, it's generating incremental purchases, but meaningful shares are speculative. So it gives some possible explanations for if this were to happen, then that means that. So assists you to not have to think, like, I mean, it would be a lot easier to just chat like this and get a decision than to I guess figure out all the scenarios and then all the different combinations of what would have happened. Okay, cool. I am going to switch back to my slides here.
You got a question in chat here. Hi, from or David, you wouldn't ask your question.
Let me see. Yeah, which question? Sorry.
From David here, are the acceptable
Okay.
ranges derived from your historical data or Claude using best judgment?
Yeah, so great question. So I've done some analysis in the past with this exact data set, quite a bit actually, because we recorded some lessons in the past and things like that. So as you use the repo more, it will know more of the shape of the data sets and understanding of it and what you care about and what you don't. You can also name it explicitly to it, like, hey, I care about the threshold being less or more than 5%, for example, and then it will codify it. So pretty flexible. For this one, I think I just figured it out based on my previous runs.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right, no problem. Great question. So, okay. So let me go back to here. Am I showing the right screen? I mean,
Share
same.
slides.
Cool. Okay. Same black screen here, so I can't really tell. Okay, we did the demo. Cool. I wanted to leave the last at least 10, 15 minutes for questions. So, couple ways to take the next step if you're ever interested, just like what we talked about earlier in the lesson. Tomorrow, again, we have the intro to Claude Code Analytics. We're going to help you set up the whole thing, install, clone, do actual real analysis, and we'll be there to help you guide every step of the way. In a week and a half-ish, during the weekends, we have the analytics bootcamp, the Claude Code Analytics Bootcamp. For attending this lightning lesson, you'll get 20% off with the code Claude20, and this expires tomorrow, end of day Pacific time. So something to we would love to have you join us if you're interested. This is where you're going to build your own AI analyst system such that like you can use it on your own data. You can have it tailored to your own use case, your own habits, and your own context. So you can come and learn to build with us. We've run this once, and pretty good, really, really good reviews from our students.
Maybe one more plug for the workshop tomorrow. So like for the reason we're running this workshop tomorrow is based on feedback from our initial boot camp and just kind of what we've seen kind of bringing agentic analytics and just Cloud Code more broadly to all the companies that we work at is that the hardest part of and I think we saw in the poll earlier that a lot of people were saying one, so they've used Claude Code before. But a lot of the hardest part of this, I think, is just getting started. And I think that it can be daunting for a lot of people to get started with Claude Code or working in terminal, especially if you're not a super technical person. But I mean, once you get started, and it's like a couple hours of friction, we find that you're kind of just really off to the races and dreaming up stuff that no one else would think of. Like for instance, my wife's in marketing. She's also like a ceramics artist, and she's not technical at all, doesn't know any sort of coding, but I got her set up with Claude Code to help her build out her ceramics business. And then she's just asking it and creating and developing things that I would have never thought of before. So we want to do this live, even though there's a lot of, I'm sure, tutorials around there around getting set up. We think that just spending a few hours with people live is a great way for us to unblock people and have other people unblock each other as well and kind of support each other. So that's why we're doing tomorrow. It's only $25. So yeah, give it a check out, or feel free to DM us if you have more questions about that. It should be pretty fun.
Yep. Looking forward to seeing quite a few people from this crowd tomorrow. Okay, cool. So this is the last slide. We've got roughly 10 minutes left. So open it up for Q&A if there's been any questions, maybe in the chat, or if anyone wants to come off mute to ask anything top of mind.
Or feel free to drop questions in the chat too
I
if you
think
don't mind.
Praveen had a question to the follow-up on the thought partner. Praveen, do you want to go ahead and ask a question?
Sure. Thanks for bringing it up. So I had a question about what do you recommend? I think Sean, you mentioned about just looking at my question. Sorry, you had that you can have no. So my question was, when you want to have a thought partner, do you go about changing your original Claude Code MD file to give a brutal, honest opinion about your metrics, or do you go about using another agent that you can create? I think you can create autonomous agents through Claude right now, and use that to stress test, what results you get. So I'm trying to see what would be the best approach.
Yeah, I definitely do the sub-agent route. Um, a couple of reasons. Like one, you have all this kind of stuff baked into your system already that's kind of biasing it. But you also have like if you're working with like your primary kind of like orchestrator agent in Claude Code, they're going to
Okay.
be biased by all their context. They're going to be like
Sure.
they're creating the work. So like when they judge their own work, they're going to be biased to saying it's correct. Even though I do find it will catch itself. So I'll either if I'm kind of done with where I'm at with it, I'll sometimes just clear context. And then if I clear context, I'll have it recheck. But the sub agent is usually what I do. And I even have like a skill that's called like it's called architect or something, but it's like a plan mode where I'll have multiple personas created specific to whatever
Yeah.
I'm analyzing or developing.
Sure.
And each of those will basically will read whatever's the analysis is, and then they'll separately critique it, and then they'll come together as a group and argue with each other, and then they'll go back and revise their critiques, and they'll come back together into line on like a line on their feedback. But I do find like forcing them into their own context that isn't polluted by everything they built before is a good way to get more kind of reliable answers. We're also going to talk about, we don't go over it in this coming boot camp. We have an advanced boot camp in June where we're going to talk about leveraging both like Codex and Claude Code together. So having totally other,
Yeah.
frontier models critique the work, I find is pretty useful as well.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
what
Thanks.
what happens with me too is when you ask it to review the whatever Claude Code generated, it tends to like be biased and say yes, oh, this is the right way. But if you kick off a subagent with minimum context, it does a way better job at validating the plan, whatever it is that you're working with. So I do the same as Sean, what Sean shared as well. And we plan to share all of this as part of our advanced bootcamp. We just realized there's so many questions around this and we don't have time to do that as part of our bootcamp that's coming on May 23rd. So probably 2 weeks after that, we'll have an advanced bootcamp where we'll share the best practices, like how do you go around like multi-project flows, what goes into Claude.md and all of that stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Let's see. Looks like Tomas, you have a question if you're still on, or you have two questions. Do you want to ask them live?
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
Yep.
Yeah, so first one is when feeding data to an LLM, what format is best? Markdown, CSV, JSON, whatever. Does that matter on the purpose of the analysis, or what should I think about there?
Yeah, I found it doesn't really matter. It knows how to figure it out basically. And even if, for example, like within your, let's call it like CSV, for example, if there's like bad formattings or like very irregular stuff, it figures it out pretty quickly, pretty easily.
Right. And what about the numbers? So how detailed should they be, or should they be rounded? Does that matter if, let's say, I have a data set with thousands of entries?
Yeah, they they can just be like raw numbers. So if you think about this, it's going to be everything that's ran here. Um, the numbers themselves aren't fed into the LLM. Basically, the LLM reasons through uh, Python functions to run that will calculate over the numbers. So from that point of a Python script, it doesn't matter if you are going to give it a like rounded number or its most raw form. So I'd probably go with like whatever its most raw form is because it's the most accurate. And then you can work with Claude to decide like from the at the output stage, like what's the right kind of rounding you want for your audience. I don't know, Hi or Sravya, if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I think that that sounds right. And then we've
But
gotten questions. Sorry, go ahead, Thomas.
just a follow up there. So obviously, if it's going to be handled by a Python script, then yeah, for sure, raw would be the best. But what if we're actually going to use the LLM itself to do pattern recognition? Would it then be a benefit with rounded numbers?
That's a good question. I mean, I think you could. I think I would want the LLM if it was going to do pattern recognition. I would think I would actually want it to create Python helper functions to do the pattern recognition itself. Basically, my kind of like philosophy with anything with numbers and analytics with LLMs is I want it to do as much of that in code as possible because whenever you start putting the numbers directly like through the LLM, you start opening yourself up to the probability of hallucinations since it's now like in that mode of like predicting the next best token. Whereas if you have it like create some functions to do the pattern recognition itself, then you know it's just reading output. Um, but that being said, yeah, I think like probably rounding, if you're going to do some sort of pattern recognition, I imagine would be a lot easier for it to like not get tripped up on if you had something with like point and like 8 decimals or something like that. I don't know, higher Shrabi, if you have any follow-ups on that. It's a pretty good question.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think on the point about the put things in code or reason over code, it also expands beyond analytics as well. So like I think quite a few folks have used Claude Code, but not for analytics. And so if you've ever built workflows or automations or whatever it is, something that becomes repeatable when you start putting it in code is actually going to guarantee reliability much more than if you have a reason over its in its raw form all the time. So I think that carries over to how we think about the analytics side as well.
Thanks a lot. That makes a lot of sense. Thanks.
Nice. Thanks for the question. Any other
Cool.
questions?
Got a minute left.
Or will the recording be available? We will send out the recording in an email probably later today or tomorrow. Anything else? Yeah, let's see. If no other question, yeah, tomorrow join us for the workshop if you like. It should be interesting one getting set up. And then the boot camp's really fun. The May 23, 24 boot camp's really fun. And we're going to run it monthly if you can't make it in May. we got another one in June. I think it's like June 13th and 14th or something. I can't remember exactly, but we'll run that monthly. It's got like a, I don't know, I think it's got like a 4.95 out of 5 star on Maven right now. It's honestly just a good way to like meet other people in the space as well too. Yeah, if you have any questions about that, feel free to ping us.
I also want to let everyone know we have a Slack workspace where you could join and, meet other people with the same in the same area. So join the Slack workspace. I just gave the link. We have around 600 people, and we'll keep sharing all the workshops there and, everything about the courses and other things. So, and you could
Oh
ask,
yeah,
yeah.
we have 2 workshops next week. We have 2 other free workshops next week.
Oh, free lightning lessons. Yes.
Yeah, I'll probably send out an email to everyone that has those as a reminder. But on Wednesday, we're going to go through root cause analysis in Claude Code. And then on Friday, we're going into turning insights into action in Claude Code. So those are free kind of walkthroughs, just like this, where we'll talk about concepts and do a demo and yeah, and do some Q&A.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thank you all for joining us. Hope to see you tomorrow. Otherwise, have a good weekend.
See you, everyone.
You're
Bye.
welcome.